Climate change. My thesis. Over the past few decades, the stir has risen over whether the fact that climate change is a naturally occurring process the Earth is going through, or if the climate change is human caused. With multiple studies and research accomplished, it's safe to state climate change is a human caused effect rather than any other reason. What I mean by this thesis statement is essentially, over the past few centuries, climate change has been noticed by humans, and ever since then, we have been doing studies and research compiling as to why climate change is occurring. However, with all the research accomplished and studies conducted, definitely safe to say that climate change is a human caused effect rather than a naturally occurring process such as the Ice Age or meteor stricken Earth. Climate change is a human cause. The facts and a little bit of background. Um, Explaining exactly what climate change is. Climate change is just a study of Earth's weather over time, as weather is a daily thing, but climate is over the past years, months, essentially just in a long time of period. How climate change can occur is different types of gases going into the atmosphere and how affecting the heat and coolness of the Earth. So, for example, carbon dioxide or CO2, as many of know it, that there is an enormous amount, an absurd amount of carbon dioxide currently in the atmosphere, as well as other chemicals and gases such as methane, water vapor, nitrogen dioxide, multiple different gases. But the most deadly, most abundant amount of gases in the atmosphere currently is carbon dioxide. So, naturally versus human carbon dioxide, what I mean by that is there are different ways that the atmosphere could have not nitrogen, carbon dioxide, such as volcanic eruptions or just daily use, like such as commuting a car. Carbon dioxide is released one way, shape, or form, and there are different ways specifically how we directly release carbon dioxide, such as fossil burning, driving your car, everyday things that release carbon dioxide. Deforestation, big one. So obviously, over time, with the Earth's atmosphere being affected and having different gases trapped inside of it, of course, causes climate change, a rise in temperature. And looking at this graph here from NASA, that pulled directly from the NASA website about climate change and the causes of climate change, here we see they showed us a graph where the yellow line is the sun and temperature is in red. The bio from NASA specifically states that this graph is representing the Earth's atmosphere and its absorption from the sun's radiation, not the sun's radiation, from the sun's heat and the Earth's temperature. Clearly, there is a direct correlation as Earth's temperature rises and the sun's irradiance goes down. A direct, uh, a direct relationship. Sorry for the stuttering. And a little background video to represent Earth.
NASA has been observing the Earth system for decades, using that unique vantage point of space to understand how our oceans and land and atmosphere and even the polar regions are working as a system and how they're changing over time. And over the last 50 years, um, our observations of our home planet have shown that our atmosphere is warming, our oceans are warming, and that's having a lot of impact on the global system. Ever since that famous Earthrise photo during the Apollo era, NASA has been taking that same technology, that same scientific expertise, and turning it back to understand our home planet. The entire ecosystem of Earth observation has really accelerated just in the last 5 or 6 years. When we talk about how Earth's climate is changing, it's easy. It might be easy to feel despair, but I really feel hopeful because I think the understanding we get from our satellite-based systems, the way we see Earth as a system, gives us the information we need to make different decisions to actually manage what's ahead. So I think science and technology can really help us manage in the future, and I think people should be hopeful about the future.
Okay, there's a reason why I wanted to bring up this video, and it's specifically because of this part right
In the
here,
last 5 or 6 years.
the cycle, Earth cycle. That is the Markovic cycle. I'm not sure specifically how to pronounce that. Is essentially the cycle in which Earth rotates over thousands of years and how it strays from different parts of the solar system because either gets closer to the sun or farther away from the sun. That's a point of why I went to bring this video for the counter argument. As well as in this video, she specifically talks about the sun and the connection it has to Earth and how we're using the satellites to visually see the change and climate change. So going back, oh, let's try to go back. Going back to this point about the sun and the atmosphere, how the Earth is not absorbing as much sun in certain areas because of the different climate change. So dope. Just want to get back to that point. Human connections to the rise in climate change. Ever since the Industrial Revolution, there have been many factories and a huge consumption of different types of gases that we use every day normally. And ever since the Industrial Revolution, there has been a direct correlation between climate change, I mean, not climate change, between carbon dioxide in the atmosphere to how it was back then. In my essay, um, I specifically stated that every research and source I've done, they all bring up the Industrial Revolution. Now, why this is significant is because before the Industrial Revolution, there was really no mass production or mass waste of releasing different types of gases to the atmosphere. All of those were being naturally caused, such as volcanic eruptions. Now, the reason why this is important is because it's not a coincidence that we started the Industrial Revolution, and as soon as we started the Industrial Revolution, there has been a significant rise in Earth's climate. Now, it naturally caused climate change is real. We know there's been an ice age. We know there's been a hot, very hot age on Earth. Earth is 4 billion years old. Of course, this beautiful planet will go through different changes in its lifetime. So there are natural events over time that, of course, will cool Earth. But however, the most recent one was in 1991 that cooled the islands of the Philippines for about a year, for a little over a year. That's just an example of naturally occurring climate change. And the Milankovitch cycle basically essentially states how the cooling and heating periods of Earth can be determined over millions of years. Now, the reason why the Milankovitch cycle is still relevant is because it's a cycle, and last time it occurred, we were in an ice age, and there are a few studies and sources out there that state the Milankovitch cycle is approaching soon again, and Earth will be in another type of ice age years from now, like thousands of years again. And here's my sources. Thank you.